Hi, I'm Sasha, and I'm here to talk to you about my crossroads in life, right? So I started studying, as most of you do, I suppose, when you're 18. So I studied. I think that was like the first kind of thing that didn't go right, or at least as I imagined it, because I wanted to study computer science, but then my grades weren't good enough. So then I went to physics, which was like, okay, it's similar, and then when I went there, I actually liked it, except that there was one snag that, so I enrolled in university in '94. So in Serbia, it was the middle of the non-war, with Croatia, with Bosnia and everything. And I was a refugee because actually we came from Croatia. So the situation wasn't nice. And then the university really kind of struggled with the situation because also the professors, also the assistants already went elsewhere. So I like physics. It doesn't, they told us when we went there, the first introductory lesson, they told us, okay, you're never going to find a job with the physics university in Serbia. So, that was like, there were like 150 of us, and it was like, okay, this went badly very quickly. So I studied physics for a few years, but I don't know, I probably wasn't as disciplined and as I should have been, because it's really hard. Also because physics was, as I mentioned, all those things going on. So I remember first year, there were like 150 of us. Second year, there was 20. Third year, 8, and fourth year, 1, right? So there was really kind of lots of drop off in the meantime. I just, so I started working because obviously didn't have that much money, right? So I just started working because I couldn't actually, it didn't go well, and I was like repeating my second year for my second time, and my mom said, okay, now you need to make some money. So in the meantime, I also found a girlfriend who was studying philosophy. So I said, physics, philosophy, it's all the same. I mean, I'm obviously joking, it's not the same, but it's kind of like the different way of looking at the same thing, right? Because usually with physics, you ask how, and with philosophy, you ask why, right? But it's also the same thing, like, the beginning of the universe and why are we here, and, what are humans and how do we work and everything. So lots of questions are similar. So anyway, I enrolled in philosophy, also got the second year, and then, I don't know, second year is kind of tricky for me. So I was already working, and, it wasn't going well. So I said, okay, I don't need university, because I got my first computer when I was 8. And I knew right away I'm going to be a programmer, right? So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to, tinker with computers. I was also having like a small business selling computers and assembling them and repairing them and everything. So I knew I wanted to tinker with computers. So these were all hobbies, more or less. And to be a developer or computer programmer, you don't really need a university degree, right? So it helps, but it's not necessary. So, I was just, working as a computer programmer here and there. I also had my own company. We sold hardware, and then that folded. And then I actually found a job in an NGO. It was a Serbian-American NGO, so they had headquarters in the US, but also they had an office in Belgrade. So I started working there. And we started working on projects that were dealing with digitalization, right? So it was around 2003, 4, something like this. So we were digitalizing frescoes, and it was kind of like, for me, it seemed like a nice marriage between computer science and art and culture, right? So cultural heritage. So I like this because the idea was, okay, I want to do something with my computer knowledge. So I worked there for a few years, and I started participating in the European Union projects. So I started going to Italy a lot, and also to the US. And when I was in Italy, I remember like I was there the first time, it was kind of like, this is not bad, one could get used to it. And then I was going there like every 2 or 3 months, and I was talking to some people there, and I met some friends. And to be honest, I don't know why. I remember around 2006, I asked my friend, okay, so if I wanted to enroll into university, where should I go, right? Because I was in Ferrara, which is like a small place in Emilia-Romagna. And I liked it, and it was like a medieval city, like most of the cities in Italy. So you have a like a small city center that's like really old, like 1,000 years, that sort of stuff. Also, there are some Roman ruins usually. So I liked it and the atmosphere and everything. And I thought, okay, so where, should I go here? And she said, no, you need to, if you want to study, you should go to Bologna. I said, Bologna, there was this, what was it called? The Bologna process or something, like, changing of how the universities work. And it was kind of like the European. So I heard about Bologna, but I was never there. So I said, like, why? And she said, like, it's the biggest city. There are like 300,000 people, and you have lots of students, and the atmosphere is different. So it's really a university city. So you should go there, and if you want to enjoy the atmosphere. So again, I was working full time, right? I was also traveling to the US at the time, like I think at least 2 times a year, but maybe even 3 or 4, depends on the occasion. So I remember I was thinking, like, I knew that this would be a hobby, right? Because what I actually wanted to study, like I was looking at what's there, and I was looking at something that's kind of between art and computer science, if there was something, right? So because obviously you have computer science, that's kind of normal. And I saw that there is a course in Bologna that's called DAMS. So it's kind of pretty new. It was founded in the 70s by Umberto Eco. So, famous writer and semiotician and semiologist and everything. It was fun because it was really like, it was similar to media studies, but not just media studies. It was really kind of more art-based than media, right? So media was kind of the addendum. And I looked at this and I thought, okay, well, this is interesting. So where can I find this? And basically, there were only 3 places in Italy that had it. So it was Bologna, it was Trieste, and it was Rome, I think. And also, I think maybe Turin, I'm not sure. But anyway, it was really kind of, it was considered on one hand very, very exclusive, so to speak. At least that's how it looked from the outside. So, so anyway, I remember I was going to the US, and if you're a foreigner and you want to study in Italy, you actually have to apply beforehand, because usually if you were Italian, you would apply like in Serbia. Well, no, in Serbia you apply in June. In Italy, you would apply usually, I think, in September or something, because they don't actually have exams for most of them, right? So they have like whoever wants to enroll can. Whereas in Serbia, you usually have the entrance exam, right? So you have to apply like 3 months in advance, that sort of stuff. So it was similar in Italy. I remember that I had to apply maybe by May. And I was traveling to the US, so it was 2006. I said, okay, I should apply, but I had to go there, and I was kind of late, right? So I said, okay, I'm going to do it next year, but I still wasn't really sure, like, do I want to do this and why? And like, I don't know, like I wasn't convinced. It was kind of, gnawing at me, at the edges. So I said, okay, let's see how it goes. Let's see how it goes with my job and everything. And then it happened that I think late 2006, I started working from home. So I wasn't working from the office. And then previously I was working for the Belgrade office, but then I kind of got moved laterally to work under the Washington office. So I had a bit more freedom. And then I remember, again, early 2007, again, I was starting thinking like, I should apply, like now is the time. If I wanted to, I should. Do I want to? And it was like, yeah, I mean, what do I have to lose, right? Because I was working remotely. I had my freedom when it comes to working hours. So I think that was one of the major reasons. Basically, I could work from Serbia or from Italy. There weren't that many changes, right? So for me, because obviously, I had to support myself. And I remember, like, again, I was kind of like, okay, I'm just going to apply and then let's see what they say. So I went there and I did apply. and there were quite a few students from Serbia, I think, maybe like 30, 40. To me, it sounded, a lot at the time. And I applied, and then they actually called me when I was in the US. I was in the US in June, and they called me and said, okay, you were accepted. And I remember I was thinking like, okay, now what do I do? So they said, well, yeah, I mean, I was working remotely, so I said, okay, I needed to get a student's visa because there was no agreement between Serbia and Italy at the time, or EU. So I had to apply for the student visa and everything, but it was pretty easy to go, actually, right? But I remember, so it was 2007, September. I remember coming to Bologna. I was there, so I got there by, I think there was a bus, because obviously on bus you can carry like whatever you want. So I was there with like 2 big suitcases. And I literally remember when I was there, like I came out of the bus, I was standing there in the middle of center with 2 suitcases, like, how convinced am I of this? But then I basically found the hostel. So I found the hostel, and I went there, I stayed there for a few weeks until I found a room. And that was kind of tricky because obviously I didn't speak Italian, and not many Italians speak English. But I did find a place with very nice people, and we are still friends after like 14, 15 years. But it was kind of strange because, I mean, so I was traveling in the US, I was also in the UK, but this was a different experience because obviously first you're in a country where you cannot easily understand people, right? So that's kind of, compared to the US where you can understand everyone if you speak, possible English. Italy was different, and I remember that was kind of the feeling that followed me for some time, like you cannot understand anyone and nobody can understand you, right? So it takes some use to, and I have to say, so afterwards I was living in Germany and my German didn't go so well, but I was so used to people not understanding me and me not understanding people. Then when I traveled to the UK, it was kind of like, okay, so it's a foreign country, I can understand people, like it just feels strange. So it was, the example of cognitive dissonance that, happens every now and then. So anyway, so one other thing that I remember in Italy was, for foreigners, they did have an entrance exam, right? But I was already there. So kind of they accepted me, but not really 100%, right? So there was a test of Italian language and Italian culture. And I was very bad at this because I just did like a few lessons of Italian. But I did rehearse a few phrases. And one of the phrases that I prepared is if they ask me, okay, your Italian is really not that good, how do you think you're gonna manage it? And I prepared the phrase, I'm gonna learn very quickly and I think I can manage in a few months and everything will be fine, right? And they did ask me this and I did answer and they said, okay, then you can, So yeah, so that was fun. I think I started speaking Italian maybe after 1 year. I did give my first exam after 6 months. I have no idea how, like I passed it. So they have votes from 18 to 30 and I got, I think 22. So it wasn't the minimum vote, right? I have no idea how they understood me. Like I wasn't speaking very good Italian at the time. That's all I know. But I remember it was also a shock, because when you learn a language, I think you go by steps. And I remember it was like I was really struggling, and then after 1 year, I could just speak Italian and I could understand most of the colloquial Italian, right? So obviously we still struggle with some specifics, but it just went on from there. So I remember when I was thinking about, so now that the way I presented to you sounds much smoother than it really went, because you know how it is with history. Like if everything goes well, then you say, well, that's how I planned for. But it wasn't really that well. I remember when I was thinking, obviously the first reasoning, like the first problem was the money, right? Like, how are you going to support yourself? So luckily, as I said, I was working for an ONG, so I wasn't paid that badly. So obviously it wasn't like a salary in Italy, but I could actually live in Italy on a limited budget, right? So, I was there with sharing the flat with other students, and, I wasn't going to any restaurants or anything. So that was okay. And then obviously my parents helped me, even though my mom wasn't convinced, to be honest. But my grandpa, he believed in me. I think he was the only one at this point. Because that was 2007, right? So I was like, what, 29? So as I said, like, the difference is when you're a student in 29 compared to when you're 18, right? So first, you have a bit more money, I would say, usually, but also you're kind of more sure of yourselves, or maybe you know your limits better. So one thing that changed for me really was when I was 18, I wasn't really disciplined, right? So I didn't want to study, and I would study for like 15 minutes, and then I would play computer games or go out and that sort of stuff. So when I was 29, no, it wasn't 20, I wasn't 29, I was 31. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. I was going to say I'm bad with numbers, but that's kind of normal for any programmer. So the difference is, obviously now you're different from them, right? So you go there and there are 150. I think my first year at DAMS, where there were like 300 people or something. So I was studying cinema and media, and there were like 150 there, but we had lots of, the first year we had lots of things together, lots of courses. And obviously, yeah, you're like 10 years older from them. So at that point, you could be their father, right? But also you are probably older than some of the assistants at the university. But then again, when you're 30, you already kind of know your value a bit more. And probably also you don't care about this much anymore, right? Because you know what you can do, you know what you cannot do. So for you, it's very easy to say, or it should be at this point to say, I don't know, or I don't know how to do this. I have never done this, but I could learn, right? That's the whole point. That's why you're there, to learn, right? So because when you're younger, you're kind of not that sure of yourself. So maybe lots of times you want to show off, even though you probably shouldn't. So that was the difference. And as I said, the difference was that I had work habits, right? So, once you work, and especially we work here, and I was doing lots of field work at the time. So you will go there and work for like 12 or 16 hours at a time for weeks. So then I remember like my first real difference was like, when I noted there was a difference, I was there studying, and then I obviously calculated, okay, so I have 3 books, I have to see this many movies to pass the exam. So I have 3 months. Okay, so how many pages is this a day? It was like maybe like 30 pages. And I said, well, 30 pages, that's like half an hour. I can do it easily, right? And the difference, from before was, yeah, it was actually easy. Like, basically I would study for maybe 2 hours a day, and that was more than enough, right? And whereas before I was studying for half an hour, I would be tired or something. Here I was studying for 2 hours. It would be, okay, now I can go to work. I'm done with this. I now need to do my 8 hours of work that I normally do. So I think that's the biggest difference when you're kind of older, because, as I said, you know what you can do, you know what you cannot do, but also you may be better at planning. You're better at planning for the future, right? Because when you're 18 and somebody says, well, you should really do your university, it's not that necessary, but it will help you because, and then when you're 18, you say, okay, I have to invest another 4 years. At that point, you've been probably studying for 12 years, because you have 8 years, at least in Serbia, 8 years of elementary school and then 4 years of high school. I understand that people really want to do something practical, right? Because also maybe you want to earn some money. You want to be a bit more independent, and also now you can go out, you can drink, and you can move away from your parents, all this stuff. So I understand how this could be inviting, right? Whereas when you're 30, it's kind of like you've already done lots of these things. So if somebody invites you, oh, we should go out because there's this really good club, and you're still like, no, been there, done that, I don't care. I actually prefer sitting at home and reading books about, I don't know, movies of Orson Welles or something, because, I've been to clubs for 15 years now, and this is something new. I want to do something new, even though, like, you're starting basically. So I think that for me was, those things actually made it much easier for me to study, because I think nobody was more surprised than my mom when I actually graduated on time, because now this is, and I remember she was really perplexed, because at the time it was okay, so you were there in your own country, you didn't have to work, and you couldn't study, and now you had to work, you had to move to another country, you don't speak the language, and you managed to graduate on time. It's like, what changed? So I know I changed. I suppose that would be the obvious reason. So I got my degree in July 2011, and then I remember looking for jobs, and it was and that's when I figured out actually having a degree in Italy had a welcome bonus, and I didn't think about it when I was going there. So I think maybe that also helped me go to Italy, because it seemed like a low stakes thing. And I think, again, as you get older, you kind of, instead of thinking what's the worst that could happen, you think more about like, okay, but why not? Like how much is it costing me now, right? So, and that's the thing, because I could easily get a student's visa. I was working remotely and I had flexible hours, right? So I knew I could support myself, and the studying wouldn't impact my job. So it was basically like, okay, you need to move. But I remember in Serbia, I actually made a calculation. I moved 11 times in 13 years. So it was like, yeah, move is not a problem. I can just, move everything back to my parents' place and just go with 2 suitcases. And it wouldn't be the first, obviously the last time that I'm going to do it. So the biggest issue was, okay, you have to go to a new country, but you don't know the language. But then obviously I thought, well, I could get by in English, which turned out to be wrong. But also it turned out that Italian is an easy language for me to learn. So for example, Germany was different, because German, I never actually learned it that well, but then most of the people speak English. So at least in Berlin, so it doesn't really matter, right? So it was kind of okay. The money wasn't that much of an issue. The visa I can get, I need to move, but this was an issue. I have to look for a flat, but I already had a job, right? Because if I knew that I needed to look for an apartment and go study and look for a job, that probably wouldn't be too much. But I had a job, so it was kind of, you have the money, but also you have something familiar that you can kind of latch onto, and you don't change 100% of things. You maybe just change like 80%. You still have something. And I also think maybe the internet, because I could talk to my mom via Skype and everything. I don't know like how it would have gone in, I don't know, 60s, 70s, 80s, where you didn't have communication and you had to write letters and that. I would have felt more abandoned than I did. But here I could actually keep communicating with my friends, right? I could just call them via Skype. We could send emails, we could send messages. So I think those were the reasons. Like I remember I was thinking at the time, not why should I go, because yeah, I could get a degree and I could do something that I knew was a hobby, but I was interested in. It was more like, but why not, right? Like how hard could it be, right? The famous last words. But in this case, it actually wasn't that hard, right? Like it was fairly simple. I did have some visa issues, because obviously you're gonna have them sooner or later. So one of the things that I didn't think about at the beginning, because as I said, like I had a job, so I didn't think about, okay, if I needed a job, how hard would it be to get? Or if I needed to get a working visa, how hard would it be to get? But then the unintended bonus was, at the time at least, if you wanted to move to Italy from Serbia, they had yearly quotas. So whatever you did, whatever job was that you did, they had a number attached to it. So you had to have a job offer, and then you had to ask for a so-called nulla osta, which is basically permission to go there. And this could take some time, right? But if you have a degree from their university, you can convert your student's visa into a working visa without any issues, right? So it was kind of more or less automatic process. Like, okay, obviously you didn't even need to have a job, because you could apply for a, what do they call it, like a job seeker visa, right? So you will get it for 6 months, and then you can also renew this. So so that's the unintended bonus that helped me, but I didn't know this at the time, right? But as I said, I remember, yeah, I was just thinking like, okay, this would be a nice thing to study. I can do this fairly easily without changing that much in my life, because I was working from home. I could work from home in Italy. I would meet new people. I would eat some nice food, drink some nice wines. So at the time, I think, like, when I was deciding, it didn't seem like a hard thing to do. I think this was the biggest thing for me to decide on. But also, I remember there was one thing that I now remember. There was this one girl that I knew. She wanted to go to the US. And I remember that, so in 1999, the US was actually, well, the NATO was bombing Serbia because of Kosovo and everything. And I remember that at exactly that time, she managed to go to the US, and she got a scholarship, and she went to study, I think, in New York or something. And I had this as an example of, because I know some of the people who wanted to go there but couldn't. And I remember having this example of, well, if you really want it, you can, right? Like, I don't want to say there is no impossible, because obviously there is impossible, but maybe not all things that you think are impossible are really impossible. Like, also likewise, probably few things that you think are very easy and very possible will turn out not to be. But I think that was, for me, it was more thinking, why shouldn't I go? Because, I like the country, I like the atmosphere, I like the university, and it seemed like a very easy thing to do. And probably also I wanted to change something in my life. I don't know. Like, some people change haircuts, I change countries. Why not? It wasn't the first time, and I don't know it's going to be the last time, but who knows? So if you're now thinking about, changing your life or going into university or something, I don't know if you should make a list, but you should probably have a clear reason. Okay, why shouldn't I do this? And also, why should I do this? Because if you make a list, those things will change, and some things might cross over from one to another. But I always say it's probably not as hard as you think, but it's also probably not as easy as you might think. So I would say, if you think about this, then why not? Because I think maybe that's because, when you're young, you're insecure, and you're always thinking, as I said, it was the worst thing that could happen. But I remember when I was doing this, I was thinking, well, I can always go back, right? Because, you're not burning any bridges. If everything fails, I can always go back to Belgrade or to my parents' place, and I can always reintegrate, right? So that's not the hard part. That's the easiest part. So I think that would be like, what have you got to lose? And obviously, if you have to, like, I don't know, if you have to sell your house to move somewhere, then I would probably think about this a lot more. But in this case, it was like, yeah, I can just go there, and it doesn't go well, I can just come back. No harm done. I just want to, I'm very happy that I did this. If I didn't do this, I don't know how it would have gone, but luckily I don't have to think about that.